My name is Jack Lee, and I am currently the program manager and also office manager for Giving Free Surrogacy at Egg Donation. I have been with the company since the very start, so it's nice to see the company grow and heading into the right direction. With more clientele and also the employees as well. It's a one big whole family. Financial aspects of surrogacy is the first thing that a lot of people will look at. It's like that's a big sum of amount, but it's also in a way a necessity when you think about it, because some people have to unfortunately go through surrogacy to be able to have a child. But it obviously comes with significant financial considerations. The cost of surrogacy, I think, can vary very widely based on a lot of different factors. One of them is such as the surrogate's location, which state she's residing in, what type of agency you're using, the medical needs, and obviously I think the whole compensation structure for the surrogate. Now I can go over a little bit in terms of the outline of the financial components involved in the surrogacy process. Now the biggest amount, obviously, when it comes down, obviously is going to be the surrogate compensation amount. That amount is really to compensate the surrogate for her time, her effort, her physical risk in doing this, carrying the baby for the parents. And this basically includes her base compensation and monthly allowances. That usually falls between roughly $50,000 to $80,000. That's about the industry standard. Now that amount really depends on the surrogate's experience. The more experience they have, the more that they're going to ask and request. And that also depends on her location. States where the cost of living is a little bit higher, like in California, for example, the surrogates would usually want to request more. That is very common. Now, additional bonuses or payments may also be provided for multiple births, travel expenses, and lost wages, but we will talk about those a little bit later. The second biggest amount that when it comes to surrogacy expenses, obviously is the agency fee. Now, agency fees, why do you need an agency? Because with the agencies, they help facilitate surrogacy arrangements, for the services. Those amounts usually are between industry standards right now is between about $40,000 to $60,000. That is a wide range as well. Now, this fee typically covers the matching process, the whole coordination aspects, and support for both the intended parents and for the surrogate throughout the whole journey. Now, the reason this amount is so wide is really because it depends on the agency's location, obviously, right? Agencies that's obviously in California, it's going to cost a lot more as well. Also really depends on the experience and so-called reputation of the agency. And obviously, the most important thing is the specific services that it offers. With prices that is a little bit on the lower end, usually don't cover a lot of services, and that requires a lot of out-of-pocket payments. And usually, those packages with higher tier amounts, usually they cover a lot of stuff. So the parents don't really have to worry about, doing a lot of out-of-pocket costs or so-called hidden costs, I should say, when it comes to this. Now, obviously, agencies play a crucial role in managing the surrogacy process. All the way from matching to the surrogates, providing surrogates and intended parents emotional and logistic support. That's the most important, because a lot of surrogates and parents are actually new to this, so they don't really know what's the next step, what's to do next, what we should do, if a certain situation arises. And so that's when the agency comes in and help to navigate and help support and guide. So that's why agencies are very, very important. So those are the two biggest amounts when we talk about surrogacy. Now, obviously, another major amount that the parents have to think about when it comes to surrogacy, obviously, is the medical expenses. Medical expenses, obviously, we're talking about the IVF, the embryo transfers, the fees also that applies to the surrogates. For example, their embryo transfer cycles, their screenings, their medication. Now, usually those amounts varies very differently. It can be all the way around $15,000 to $20,000 or more. A lot of the clinics also provide packages, with different tier packages that the intended parents can choose from, but they will have to check in with their clinics. Now, this amount for the IVF, the treatments, the transfers, usually they are paid directly to the IVF clinic and not to the agency. So it will not be stated. The amount usually will not be stated on the so-called estimated cost sheet provided to the intended parents. There's a difference. When you talk about medical expenses, another thing obviously is the prenatal care. Once a surrogate is achieved the pregnancy, there'll be doctor visits, ultrasounds, and any necessary checkups and appointment and screenings. But usually those are also partially covered by the insurances, which the intended parents will have to purchase or cover for the surrogate. And then also obviously there's going to be labor and delivery costs when a baby is born. Now those are obviously hospital bills and also OB bills. Now they can range anything from $5,000 to $15,000. Now we're talking about specifically the delivery costs, especially there will be more if the C-sections or whatnot. But this amount is usually also partially paid by the insurance that you're going to provide or purchase for the surrogates. Whatever's left over after the insurance claims and the final amount, the intended parents will have to pay out of pocket, but that's usually quoted on the estimated cost sheet as well, an amount. Now go to the smaller ranges amounts. We have insurances, which is very big role. When we talk about insurances, we have the surrogate health insurance. That is including the review if the surrogate already have insurance to make sure that it is surrogacy friendly. Also, if they don't have insurance, then obviously we'll have to enroll her, do quick search ups and stuff, and also the monthly premium amount. Obviously, you have to, once you enroll, you have to pay the monthly premium amount. Now, reviewing, purchasing, and all the so-called management, ensure that the bills are being paid, bill monitoring. Usually all those in the journey are quoted to be around $15,000 to $17,000. That's about the range. The other aspects of insurance is the life and accidental death insurance that's typically purchased for surrogates, and that could be anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 range amount. So that's that. And now another fee that we talk about is legal fees. Obviously, legal fees are very, very important because legal contracts and agreements are essential in surrogacy to ensure the rights of both the surrogates and the intended parents are protected and covered. They usually also include obviously the drafting of the contracts, reviewing of the contracts, and also the legal process to establish parental rights. Doesn't matter if it's a post-birth order or a pre-birth order. Those also include legal fees, also government fees, where you have to send it to the government for review and stuff. Now, those amounts usually range from anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. That's including the so-called contract agreement and also the pre-birth and the post-birth order. The intended parents obviously will have to be responsible for paying both the legal teams, their own legal team, and also the surrogate's legal team. So that's around the range. Now, there are also many small amounts that people might not cover, or sometimes they just don't really think about it when they think about surrogacy expenses. But they do add up because there are amounts that, still is significant to some. One of them, for example, is a mental and physical well-being of the surrogate. Usually these are written in the agreement contracts between the intended parents and the surrogates. These are usually around $4,000 to $7,000 depending. They most likely include psych counseling sessions, pregnancy gifts, and support groups that supports. These supports are very, very essential to ensure the emotional well-being of the surrogate during their journey. There's also outside monitoring fees. Not all clienteles will have this outside monitoring fees. However, if the surrogate lives really far away from the parent's IVF clinic, then obviously they will require local monitoring facility, clinics to do the monitoring. And usually that amount could be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. Usually estimate costs. You also have to think about a surrogate travel cost. meaning their transportation, doesn't matter if it's flight, ground transportation as well, hotels and lodgings, and also overnight meal allowances. That is when the surrogate have to attend the IVF, the clientele's parents' IVF clinic for medical screening or for monitoring, for embryo transfer. Those are usually estimated to be about $3,000 on the average. And then obviously, when you go down the list, you have to think about surrogates' lost wages. If a surrogate has a job and she's required to be on bed rest, medical bed rest during this pregnancy, then obviously this will have to be paid to the surrogate, right? And this amount will really vary depending on her pay, her job status. Other things that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to surrogacy amount is surrogate housekeeping, surrogate childcare amount, the maternity clothing allowances. These amounts are usually typically included in the surrogacy process and put into the agreement between the intended parents and the surrogates. And the housekeepings, the childcares, and the maternity clothing allowances usually could add up to about $2,000 easily. And then obviously, once the journey is almost over, I think that there's still also the things about post-birth expenses, if there's any. Now, after the baby is born, sometimes there will be extra expenses. The baby's medical courses, how long the baby's going to stay in NICU, if it's a pre-birth or if there are complications, hopefully not. But if there are, obviously, these medical courses. And these amounts are usually not quoted on the agency's call sheet. Those are usually extra expenses that the parents will have to obviously pay to the hospital. But if the parents usually so-called they are residents and they have insurance, health insurance, most insurance providers will allow a certain time period for the baby to be added onto the insurance. So that could help cover some of the expenses. But whatever's left over that the insurance doesn't cover, the intended parents will have to be responsible for that amount. Obviously, the escrow account usually will be left open for a extended period of time after post-delivery. That is to ensure that all the bills are being paid off and that the surrogates has a complete post-birth recovery, because sometimes there could be complications during her recovery or even outstanding bills from her OB or from her delivery that is not covered by the insurances or outstanding bills left over from the insurance amounts. That usually will have to be covered by the intended parents as well. That is the overview of some of the courses that usually people talk about. As you can see, a lot of them, some of them are not that big amount, but when you add it all up, it is a lot of amount. And I think this amount that we talk about, it obviously involves multiple layers, right, of courses, all the way including medical, legal, compensation related expenses. Going through what I just mentioned, and we went over, I think a typical estimated amount for journey, excluding IVF course fees, alone can run around $150K to $200K easily. So while surrogacy can be expensive, but it does offer a path to parenthood, like mentioned, for many who are not able to have otherwise. But so by understanding these financial components, it obviously can help intended parents and clientele who need to prepare for the financial commitment and be able to navigate the process with confidence. That's pretty much the gist and overview. It will come down to the agency, and usually they don't request the big full amount all at once because that is a financial big amount, obviously. So what happens is usually most agencies will break it down into 2 or 3. Sometimes agencies even break it down to 4 payments at different stages. Now, usually a lot of the time, the agencies will charge the first amount. That first amount could be anywhere from thousands of dollars to thousands, tens or $20,000. Depends. Different agency is very different, but sometimes they might need you to deposit that amount first, as sort of think about a commitment fee before they even share profiles. So that really comes down very differently. And then the second payment usually is that once it is depends. Sometimes agencies will do it once they are matched. Sometimes they will do it when the surrogate is medically clear For example, some agencies will not go further if the surrogate obviously don't pass medical clearance. They have to do rematches, obviously. That will really come down to the agency. Every single agency is different, quite different in that regards. And then usually there are other payments, further payments, third or fourth payments. Usually it comes down anywhere. It can be heartbeat confirmation is one of them. And then obviously there was also before that, there might also be one that is around the legal clearance. That's after medical clearance, and then you go into legal, and then you do the contract, and then both sides agree. They notarize, and then you reach legal clearance, and then sometimes the agency will have an amount deposit around that time as well. But usually that's the gist of it. It really comes down to the agency. The most frequent that I have seen, at least for the hundreds of cases that we have done, they all were able to pay. From what I know so far, as I remember, that there are no loans, and when it comes to payment, they are able to get the amount deposited in time. Obviously, how they get that amount, we don't really go and ask, right, the specific details. But at least from what I know, I have not heard a client yet says I have to borrow a significant chunk or do a loan and I have to return the interest. I have not heard that so far for our clientele so far. But obviously, I know that it might be different from different agency or different clientele basis, obviously. So. Well, I think yes. There's a lot of obviously agencies out there, a lot of competition. But I think one of the things that we're able to stand out is between a short amount of time, in less than 10 years' time, we're able to grow from just couple cases in the very beginning all the way to now that we are firmly, I would say, established in the industry, and that a lot of the third parties are aware of who we are. And I think also we just won the 2024 Surrogacy Agency of the Year by one of the established magazines. And obviously now with us also being top of the line in the industry, keeping track of whatever's going on in the industry, with attending different conferences and ASRMs, men having babies, spreading our experiences, also with all the different third parties that we work with, when a client comes to us, they can be sure that we have enough experience right now, whether in regards to if it's any referrals about legal questions, about being able to establish parental orders, any concerns that they may have legal-wise, we know who to refer them to. Right? Not just one or two, we have many different sources, several sources that we work with, third parties that are well established in the industry. Right? We have established great relationship with several different escrow accounts. The biggest being C Trust. We refer them hundreds of cases a year, and vice versa. They're very pleased with us. We also have not just that, and not just the escrow teams, but the legal teams, but we also have worked with many different so-called insurance agents when it comes to getting the surrogates to be enrolled in, or maybe making sure that whatever insurance that they have, the plan right now, that it covers surrogacy. And for that, you really need to go with someone who have a lot of connections, obviously. And we work with some of the biggest, I should say, insurance companies and providers that does this fertility in terms of in the industry. For example, At Risk, IFI Insurance, those two are the two biggest ones. And we also work with many different brokers as well. And also that includes all the way extend to life insurance, accidental death insurance as well. So when a client comes to us and they have any questions or concerns among every different stage, we will be able to provide them with the assistance and the guidance and to support them throughout. That's not only for the so-called clientele or intended parents, but that also goes along with for the surrogates as well.